Hi everyone. I have a lot of things that I've been wanting to share and talk about, and I'm not really sure where to begin, but I think I'm going to start by sharing this table, or actually reviewing this table. It's a table that I've shared before, but I believe we're at a very critical time right now in terms of the second coming of Christ, of Yeshua. I'm not sure of the day or the hour, but I believe it's going to be very soon. And based on this timeline, we may only have a few days left because, as I've pointed out before, when I've shared this timeline before, this is on the second Advent, Yesh, year, Obama, beast, and there's some other terms that come up as well. I'll show those in a little while, but I just want to show you first how this comes up. See, the word Advent comes up over here in the pink, and you have both the words first and second come up, touching right against the word Advent. So I think this is referring to both the first Advent and the second Advent. And by the second Advent, I'm talking about the Rapture. I believe the second coming and the Rapture are both one and the same. But over here where you have first, it says the first month, the first day of the month. And where you have second, it says the second month, the 7 and 20th day of the month. And so this would be the 27th day of ER. ER is the second month. And if you look at the calendar, that would be May 12th. You see that right there. It's the 27th day of ER. And the very next day is Yom Yerushalayim. That's Jerusalem Day. That would be the day that the city of Jerusalem was restored in the 6-day war. It's when Israel took back the city of Jerusalem. On our calendar, that would have been on June 6th or 7th, but on the Hebrew calendar, it was the 28th day of ER, which begins sunset the day before, so it would begin on the 27th of ER. And so that's the date that comes up in this table, just right against the word Advent, second Advent, because this is where you have the word second. So it comes up with the second month and the 7 and 20th day of the month, crossing through the word Advent. And then further down, you have Obama and beast. You have Yesh going through that. And you also have the word Satan. I had also put in Satan, enter, and you had Obama and beast over here. And then I put cast, as in Satan cast. And I had put in the word year. That comes up at the top, where it's talking about 7 days. It's crossing through 7 days. And so you have the word enter going through the word beast. And then you have Obama. And then you had Satan over here in the blue, the letters S-A-T-A-N. And what's interesting is that it comes up in Genesis 8:10, which adds up to 18. And this is when Noah and his family departed from the ark, from Noah's ark. It's when the earth had dried up. And this is when they went off of the ark in the second month, on the 7 and 20th day of the month, when the earth was dry. So this is when Noah and his family departed the ark. And it's interesting that comes up in verse 14, because 14 represents the 144,000. And then, as always, you can see this pattern with the 17th and the 18th. It's on the 17th, in verse 17, it says, "Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee of all flesh, both birds and cattle, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." And Noah went forth, and his sons and his wives, and his sons' wives with him. So this is when they went forth from the ark. Okay, if you go back to verse 8:10, this is where it said, and he stayed yet another 7 days. And again, he sent forth the dove out of the ark. Of course, the dove represents the Holy Spirit. 8 and 10 adds up to 18. And this is where you had the word year come up in ELS form. And I had talked about before how the dove represents the Holy Spirit. And so you have the word plucked off over here going through the word Advent. Above that you have the dove came into him at even. I had talked about this before, eventide. And the dove represents the Holy Spirit. And then you have plucked off going through that. You have the dove again, which represents the Holy Spirit. And then you had the first day of the first month. The waters dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dried. And in the second month, on the 720th day of the month, was the earth dry. And God spoke unto Moses, saying, Go forth from the ark, thou and thy wife and thy son's wife, and bring forth with thee every living creature that is with thee of all flesh, both birds and cattle, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife, and his son's wife with him, every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird whatsoever that moveth upon the earth. And that's where you have the word yesh going through there. So this is when they departed the ark. And so this would be in verse 17 and 18. And this is where you have the word yesh going through the table. And this is also where you have Obama and beast. And then going through Obama, you have the word beast again, going through the letter B. And then it says over here, the altar. And in Matthew 24, it says that the Antichrist is going to stand in the holy place. So I'm not sure if that's a reference to the holy place, but you have the altar over here. You have over here the word says evil from his youth, going through Obama. And then at the bottom you have the word seed time and harvest. Okay, so I've been over this table before, but I thought it was really critical because we're in this time frame right now, so I thought I should mention it again. And what's really amazing is I was looking at this Wikipedia article about the Great Pyramid of Giza and looking at the measurements, because I want to go back to talking about the Great Pyramid of Giza. I have a lot more that I wanted to try to talk about and explain. And I had noticed this measurement over here, and I felt that this was in reference to the height of the pyramid, because I couldn't really understand why the height of the pyramid is 5,776 inches, which lines up with the Hebrew year 5776, but the capstone wasn't placed in 5776, although there was a very important sign in 5776. And that was the last star of Bethlehem. There was a couple of conjunctions, 2 or 3, that had taken place that were considered the Star of Bethlehem. But the last one to take place was on August 27th, 2016, which was the Hebrew year 5776. And I'll go ahead and show you this article. I've shown it before, but it says Saturday's Venus-Jupiter encounter may explain Bible's Star of Bethlehem. Okay, over here it says, taken literally, the biblical account of the story of the Star of Bethlehem calls for not one but two stars, one to be seen at the start of the Magi's journey, while the other appearing to them upon their arrival in Bethlehem. And so this was 2 years later, so it could be that this sign was given 2 years in advance, because Jesus was 2 years old by the time the Magi had gotten to the place where Jesus was. And so it could be that the star appeared 2 years in advance. And so 2 years ago in 2016, on August 27th, this was during the Leo constellation, is when you had this conjunction that was referred to as the Bethlehem star, and it was a conjunction between Venus and Jupiter. And as I explained during that time, this occurred right beneath what I believe is the capstone to the pyramid. I believe that's what is represented by the constellation Coma Berenices, because this constellation forms the shape of an angle, which is what the chief cornerstone is. It's the chief angle. And the Alpha star is the star diadem. Okay, you can see that over here. That's the Alpha star, and that means crown. It's another word for crown. And the word coma in the Hebrew means a desired one. It's in Haggai 2:7, where it says the desire of all nations will come, and that's basically what the Shiloh prophecy was all about. And then this was right by the star in Virgo's head, which is called Sebi Yahweh. I'll show you that. Or Zavi Java, and it means beautiful Lord. So it took place right by that star. And so this was coming up right in the center of what would be the top of the pyramid, and I had explained before how the Sphinx is a representation of where Leo and Virgo join together, where they bind together. That's what the word Sphinx means, to bind or to join. And so this was a representation of the pyramid beginning and ending, beginning with Leo and ending, or beginning with Virgo and ending with Leo. And so it makes a triangle, with this being the capstone, and this took place right underneath the capstone, right in the middle of the two, where the two bind together. And so I had explained all of that before, but I was considering the meaning of this figure over here, which is actually the volume of the pyramid. It actually comes out to this number here, and as you can see, it contains the numbers 227 and 7778. So I was trying to understand the meaning of that, and of course this is the Hebrew year 7778. And I had explained before that the word head in the Greek, as in head of the corner, is 2776, and that this word was actually used 76 times. I don't think it's by accident that it was Strong's number 2776, and it's used 76 times in the scriptures. It's referring to the head of the corner. But I noticed that the same word continues through Strong's number 2777. It also is another word for head. And then if you look at the next Strong's number, it's 2778. And this is actually the word census. And it was actually during the census, during tax time, that Jesus was born. I believe there was a video that was made about that during tax time on April 17th, I believe. But what dawned on me is that this would actually be the date, ER 277778. It would be the current date coming up, and then the numbers 9 and 1 represent the Alpha and the Omega, because 1 is the first number, 9 is the last single digit number. And this would be when the Jubilee year ends. I had actually shown this before on ER 27 in the Hebrew year 5777, that was the beginning of the Jubilee year. But the Jubilee from when Israel went into the land fully, once they retook Jerusalem, that Jubilee will end according to the Hebrew calendar. It'll end on ER 28. Okay, so it could be that this was a sign given 2 years in advance pointing to the birth. And it could be that this is giving the actual date. I'm not saying that it is, but it's just a possibility.